Why poor countries can't just print more money, the hidden truth behind currency, inflation, and economic collapse. The question that breaks economics. Zimbabwe, November 2008. A loaf of bread costs 1.6 billion Zimbabwean dollars. A single egg? $50 billion. By the end of that month, inflation had reached 89.76% per year. That's 897 quadrillion percent. People carried money in wheelbarrows. Not to buy cars or houses, to buy bread. Workers were paid 3 times a day because by evening, their morning wages were worthless. Parents used billion-dollar notes as wrapping paper because it was cheaper than buying actual wrapping paper. People often ask a simple question. If a country is poor and it needs money, why can't the government just print more of it? At first, the idea sounds logical. If you're short of cash, why not create more? But money doesn't work the way most people think it does. Alex said, "I don't understand. If we need money for hospitals and schools, just print it." Paul said, "Rich countries print money all the time. Why can't we?" Mary said, "It's paper. We have paper. We have printers. What's the problem?" These aren't stupid questions. They're actually quite reasonable if you don't understand what money really is. So let's break this down from the beginning, using real examples from history that show exactly what happens when countries try this. What is money really? Before we talk about printing money, we need to understand what money actually is. Because money isn't what you think it is. Imagine you work at a company. Your employer pays you a salary every month. Let's say $5,000. That salary has value because the company is productive. It provides goods or services that people trust and pay for. Your paycheck represents a claim on real value that the company has created. Now imagine something changes. One day your employer stops doing real work. They stop manufacturing products. They stop providing services. But instead of fixing the business, they simply start printing salary slips. Your pay slip still says $5,000. But the company is no longer producing anything. Very quickly, those salary slips become meaningless. Dr. Anderson, this is exactly how money works at a national level. Money is not valuable because it exists. Money is valuable because people trust it. It's a social construct backed by economic reality. Let me give you a real example. In 1946, Hungary experienced the worst hyperinflation in recorded history. The government was printing money to pay for post-war reconstruction. But the country's factories were destroyed. Its infrastructure was in ruins. And it was producing almost nothing. At the peak, prices doubled every 15 hours. A cup of coffee that cost 1,000 pengo in the morning would cost 2,000 pengo by evening. The government eventually introduced a new currency called the B-pengo, where 1 B-pengo equaled 1 trillion regular pengo. Even that wasn't enough. They had to create another currency, the mil-pengo, where 1 mil-pengo equaled 1 million regular pengo. The final inflation rate, 41.9 quadrillion percent per month. The Hungarian government printed 100 quintillion pengo notes. That's a 1 followed by 20 zeros. But you couldn't buy a loaf of bread with it because people didn't trust it. They trusted goods instead. Cigarettes, bread, eggs. These became the real currency. Dr. Anderson, what Hungary proved is that money only works when people believe in 3 things: that goods can be bought with it, that other people will accept it, and that its value won't suddenly collapse. When any of these beliefs fail, money fails. The trust problem. Many poor countries face a trust problem. Not because people are lazy, not because people are ignorant, but because the system behind the money is weak. Let's look at Venezuela, a country sitting on the world's largest oil reserves. In 2012, Venezuela was relatively prosperous. By 2018, it had collapsed into chaos. What happened? The government of President Nicolas Maduro decided to print money to fund social programs and pay government employees. Between 2016 and 2019, Venezuela's money supply increased by over 1 million%. Maria, I remember when I had to carry a backpack full of cash just to buy chicken for dinner. My monthly salary as a university professor, which used to support my family, couldn't buy a kilo of rice. I watched my life savings evaporate in weeks. By 2018, inflation in Venezuela reached 130,000%. A roll of toilet paper cost 2.6 million bolivars. The average Venezuelan lost 24 pounds in body weight in a single year, not from dieting, but from starvation. This became known as the Maduro diet. 7 million Venezuelans fled the country, 23% of population. GDP contracted by 75% between 2013 and 2020. Infant mortality increased 140%. 96% of population fell into poverty. But Venezuela had oil. It had resources. It had educated people. What it didn't have was trust. Let me explain why. When a government prints more money without increasing production, improving infrastructure, growing exports, or building investor confidence, then more money simply means higher prices, not more wealth. This is called inflation. Too much money, too few goods. But there's a deeper mechanism at work here that most people don't understand. The mechanics of collapse. When a country prints money, several things happen simultaneously, and they create a death spiral. The illusion of prosperity. At first, printing money seems to work. The government suddenly has funds to pay salaries, build roads, fund programs. People have more money in their pockets. There's a brief euphoria. Zimbabwe experienced this in the early 2000s. Tendai Biti. When we first started printing money to fund land reform and pay war veterans, people were happy. Government workers got raises. There was money flowing. We thought we had found a solution to poverty. But then stage 2 begins. The price spiral. Shopkeepers notice they have more customers with more money, but they're selling the same amount of goods. So they raise prices. A loaf of bread that costs $10 now costs $15. Landlords raise rent. Bus fares increase. Everything costs more. In Zimbabwe, between 2007 and 2008, prices doubled every 24.7 hours at the peak of hyperinflation. Tendai Biti. I remember going to the market in the morning with enough money to buy groceries for a week. By afternoon, that same money could only buy a chicken. By evening, not even that, but it gets worse. Stage 3, currency substitution. When money loses value rapidly, people stop using it. They switch to more stable currencies, usually the US dollar or euro, or they go back to bartering. In Zimbabwe, people traded salt, sugar, and cooking oil instead of using Zimbabwean dollars. Dr. Anderson. This creates a vicious cycle. The more people abandon the local currency, the faster it loses value. The government responds by printing even more money, which accelerates the problem. It's economic quicksand. By 2009, Zimbabwe abandoned its own currency entirely. The country now uses the US dollar, South African rand, and other foreign currencies. For 10 years, Zimbabwe didn't have its own money. Economic paralysis. When currency collapses, the entire economy freezes. Businesses can't plan for tomorrow because they don't know what prices will be. Foreign companies won't invest because they can't trust the currency. Banks fail. Savings evaporate. The middle class disappears overnight. Real statistics on screen. Zimbabwe, 2008. Unemployment, 94%. Life expectancy dropped from 60 to 44 years. GDP contracted 50% in 5 years. Hyperinflation peak, 89.7 sextillion percent per year. Venezuela, 2018. Bolivar lost 99.99% of its value. Murder rate 60 per 100,000, one of world's highest. Hospital supplies, 85% shortage. People eating from garbage. Routine Weimar Germany, 1923. 1 USD equals 4.2 trillion marks. Middle-class savings wiped out. Political extremism rose, led to Nazi Party. Suicides increased 300%. Why rich countries can print money. Now, here's where it gets confusing. Rich countries print money all the time. The United States printed trillions of dollars during the COVID-19 pandemic. Japan has been printing money for decades. The European Central Bank creates billions of euros every month. So why doesn't their money become worthless? Professor Elizabeth Chen, international monetary economist. Professor Chen, this is the question that frustrates developing nations, and it's a fair one. The answer lies in several critical differences between rich and poor economies. Let's break down exactly why the United States can print money, but Zimbabwe cannot. Difference 1. Productive capacity. When the U.S. Federal Reserve created $4 trillion after the 2008 financial crisis, America still had massive productive capacity. The factories didn't disappear. The technology companies didn't vanish. The skilled workforce remained. The money entered an economy capable of producing goods and services. The U.S. GDP in 2020 was $21 trillion. When they printed $3 trillion for COVID relief, they added 14% of the money supply, but they added it to an enormous productive economy. Professor Chen, compare that to Zimbabwe in 2008. They were printing money in an economy where agricultural production had collapsed by 60%, mining was crippled, and manufacturing had shrunk by 50%. They were adding money to an economy producing nothing. Difference 2. Global reserve currency. The US dollar is the world's reserve currency. About 60% of global currency reserves are held in US dollars. Nearly 90% of all foreign exchange transactions involve dollars. Oil, gold, and most commodities are priced in dollars. This creates a unique situation. When America prints dollars, the world absorbs them. China holds $1.1 trillion in U.S. Treasury bonds. Japan holds $1.3 trillion. The European Union holds trillions more. Global demand for dollars is effectively unlimited. Dr. Anderson, it's an exorbitant privilege. America can export its inflation to the rest of the world. When Zimbabwe prints money, only Zimbabweans are stuck with it. When America prints money, the whole world shares the burden. Difference 3. Institutional trust. The U.S. Federal Reserve has 110 years of credibility. People trust it to manage money responsibly. The Bank of England has 330 years of history. These institutions have weathered wars, depressions, and crises while maintaining the currency's value. Professor Chen, Zimbabwe's Reserve Bank, by contrast, was run by Gideon Gono, who openly admitted to printing money to solve problems. He said, and I quote, "I printed money, and I don't regret it. I found myself doing extraordinary things that aren't in the textbooks." That's the difference. Central banks in developed nations are independent from government. They have mandates to control inflation. They have credibility earned over centuries. Zimbabwe's central bank was a political tool. Difference 4. Diverse, advanced economy. Montage. Technology, pharmaceuticals, aerospace, entertainment. When America prints money, It flows into an economy that produces 40% of global pharmaceutical innovation, leading technology companies worth trillions, advanced manufacturing and aerospace, dominant entertainment and media, world-class universities and research, most innovative startups and patents. Zimbabwe's economy in 2008 was primarily agriculture and mining, both sectors that had collapsed. Professor Chen, you can only print money successfully if you have something valuable to back it up. Not gold necessarily, but productive capacity, innovation, and economic complexity. Rich countries have this. Most poor countries don't. ACT 6. The countries that tried Zimbabwe and Venezuela aren't isolated cases. History is littered with countries that tried to print their way to prosperity. Every single one failed catastrophically. Case 1. Weimar Germany, 1921 to 1923. After World War I, Germany owed massive war reparations. The government decided to print marks to pay the debt. The currency collapsed. In 1914, $1 bought 4.2 German marks. By November 1923, $1 bought 4.2 trillion marks. Germans burned money for heat because it was cheaper than buying firewood. They wallpapered their houses with banknotes. Children built blocks with stacks of cash. Life savings became worthless. The middle class was destroyed. This economic chaos created the conditions for Adolf Hitler's rise to power. Case 2. Yugoslavia, 1992 to 1994. During the Yugoslav Wars, the government printed money to fund the military. In January 1994, Yugoslavia issued a 500 billion dinar note. 1 month later, they issued a 500 trillion dinar note. The inflation rate reached 313 million% in a single month. Case 3. Argentina, 1975 to 1991. Argentina changed its currency 5 times in 15 years, each time removing zeros. The peso ley became the peso argentino, which became the austral, which became the new peso. Inflation reached 20,000% in 1990. Supermarkets changed prices multiple times per day using stamp machines. Roberto Martinez, Argentine economist Roberto. My grandmother kept her savings under her mattress. Every month, those bills bought less. She would cry because her entire life savings, meant for her grandchildren's education, could barely buy groceries. Inflation is theft. It steals from the poorest and most vulnerable. Countries like South Korea and Rwanda succeeded by building strong foundations, investing in education, production, exports, stable institutions, low corruption, and currency discipline. They focused on creating real value over time, not shortcuts. The proven path includes producing goods and services, maintaining stable money, investing in people, enforcing laws, building infrastructure, and earning foreign income through exports. These steps are difficult and slow, but they work. Shortcuts such as money printing or excessive borrowing fail. Printing money carries a high human cost. Currency collapse destroys savings, forces migration, breaks families, and erodes trust. Money is not wealth. It only represents real value. You cannot print prosperity. Value must come first, and money follows.